Our journey continues as we walk through the candy land that is sugars. Now we need to move on to go into a little bit more detail on the cyclization of a sugar. So we always like to start by drawing sugars as a linear molecule. But truth be told, and I have to be completely honest with you, sugars tend to not exist as linear molecules in a cell. Instead, they're going to form a ring or a cyclic molecule. Now, in order to do that, right here, oh, sorry, um, on the right-hand side of your figure or in the right-hand side of your slide, I want you to see that you've got D-glucose. We know that because carbon number 5, which is the highest numbered chiral carbon, is on the right-hand side of my structure. I've also got an aldehyde functional group, and carbon number 2, 3, and 4 have hydroxide groups on the right, left, and right, respectively. Now, in order for this reaction, or in order for a sugar to cyclize, what we need a partial negative group and an aldehyde. Now, what we know about this aldehyde is this right here, that carbon is a partial positive because this has a partial negative charge. Now, looking at the rest of the molecule, does anything else have a partial negative? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. All of these alcohols have partial negative charges. So what that means is that this group right here could conceivably react with any number of these. Now, when that happens, and when an aldehyde reacts with an alcohol, you form what's known as a hemiacetal. Okay, so to visualize this group right here, carbon number 1 is going to, or is capable of reacting with any one of these hydroxide groups. Now, this structure down here is known as a pyridose. This is glucopyranose. So this is glucose as a six-membered ring. Now, thinking about that, carbon number 1 is carbon number 1 right here. Let's count this off and see which group reacts. And I mentioned this when we were talking about Fisher projections and Haworth projections, but I want you to remember that this oxygen that I've circled right here is one of the alcohols, because this oxygen that I'm putting or I'm underlining becomes a hydroxide group that I've now underlined in the cyclic form. So let me ask you these questions and just kind of go along with me. Could carbon number 1 right here react with this alcohol? Totally. Could it react with this alcohol? Yep. This one, and this one, and this one. It could react with any number of those. Now, in order to form a six-membered ring, let's count off the one that it actually reacts with. Carbon number 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. And then, aha, this hydroxide group is the one that forms this oxygen that closes our ring in. So what we've got is a partial positive charge attacking that partial negative charge of that alcohol. So the aldehyde reacts with that alcohol to form a hemiacetal. Now, this is kind of what that looks like, resulting in the positioning of these different hydroxide groups being, well, positioned upwards or downwards with respect to the ring. Now, what's important to know about a sugar whenever it cyclizes is this carbon right here, our anomeric carbon. Well, what we've got right here is this hydroxide group is pointing downward. It could be pointing upward, but in this case, it's pointing downward. Kind of a 50-50 shot. Now, with that in mind, it's important to know, well, is there any consequence to that? Does that mean anything? And the answer is yes, it does. What it means is we want to look at this hydroxide group, where it's positioned relative to this group right here. CH2OH, carbon number 6, is pointing upward. This hydroxide group on our anomeric carbon is pointing downward. they are going in opposite directions. So by those going in opposite directions, the specific sugar that we are looking at is an alpha sugar. Now, what that means is that if this was going up, let me redraw that. If we had an OH group that looked like this, that would be going up. Carbon number 6 would be going up. This would be a beta sugar. But the way that I've got it drawn initially, well, these two groups are going in the opposite direction. So we are dealing with an alpha sugar. What I've got depicted right here is an alpha sugar. So you always want to find your anomeric carbon and ask the question, which direction is my OH group going? Okay, the same thing occurs when it comes to a ketone. A ketone has that same partial positive charge, partial negative charge on that alcohol. And what we're seeing is this cyclization. The ketone reacts with an alcohol to form a hemiketal. And that's the one to just kind of sum it all up. And, or actually, before I sum it all up, I like this figure right here because what color is that oxygen? It's kind of yellowish. What is the fate of that oxygen? Becomes an OH. Here we have our OH on our anomeric carbon. It's kind of yellowish. Then we have our oxygen within our ring that is red. And, well, this oxygen is red. These are color-coded there. Okay, well, that will wrap it up for the cyclization of sugars. I hope this is helpful. I'll see you in the next video.